welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard, and joining me is a gentleman by the name of Ed Baraf, and Ed's been on the show before, so technically he's a repeat offender, but technically this is kind of like a work in progress, because technically it's also a quick start on the Kickstarter, so I'm very confused because we are in the last couple of days of Ed's kind of current Kickstarter campaign.
Legendary Creatures is ending in just a couple days.
So there we go. So hello, Ed. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No,
again.
I know it's.
I don't know why I'm here again, but I'm happy to be here.
Thanks very much. But you've been busy since we last spoke. Last time we talked, it was about Herbaceous. So Herbaceous came and went, it got funded, and it's out there, and it's a lovely, beautiful little kind of card game. And now, now you've got Heroes and Tricks. You were involved with that as well. And you had, and now you've got Legendary Creatures kind of out there. So
Yep.
How's the campaign been going? Looking at this, you're funded.
It's been going well. It funded, I think, on day 2 or perhaps morning of day 3, and we've been working on it, knocking out some stretch goals, and gearing up for the final 48 hours. So, overall, it's been a solid campaign. We're probably coming on 620 type backers, so not the largest. Herbaceous was by far my largest campaign, but number of people are going to get a chance to play and get the project moving, get the game kicked off.
That's cool. So for people who have been maybe sitting on the fence, they've been kicking about Kickstarter, because of other obviously big, huge, massive campaigns that nobody can ignore. How would you sum up Legendary Creatures for people that haven't kind of ventured and had a look? Just what would you say the elevator pitch is for Legendary Creatures?
Well, so in Legendary Creatures, thematically you're playing as these apprentice who are trying to become the next druid, and you're essentially racing through these realms, and it's a creature combination / ability resource management game. So what you're doing is you're basically starting with a deck of fantastic creatures, legendary creatures, and you're combining their different abilities in the order in which you play them to drive in these different realms. And so it's got a lot of card combination, variation in the play, and replayability around just what creature you use, how you use it, what resources you generate. So it's a meaty game. It's designed by Christopher Ham, whose first game was Strife. And anyone who's played Strife, he's got a really nice ability to make sort of complex and interesting gameplay decisions, and it's in spades in Legendary Creatures.
How many times? Have you been playing it a lot yourself? Has it been something you've been playtesting quite considerably yourself? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have to. I run playtests. He ran some. I did blind playtests. I've played that game a lot of times, man. And I still enjoy it. It's absolutely a game I can sit down and play again and again and do different things and try different combinations and see how other people are playing. So it really has that range. It's a longer game. It's easily the longest game that Pencil First has put out. It's about 30 minutes per player. So you're looking at, a 60-minute to 2-hour game. So it's meaty. Yeah. But the actual game flow is pretty straightforward. It's really the sort of different decisions and routes you can take as you play.
Because Liftoff, that was the biggest one kind of before, I think. Heroes and Tricks was always just a nice kind of lightish kind of passing.
For sure. This is my first big box game since Liftoff, and it reminds me a lot of a lot you have to think about when you're doing these bigger games. But it's certainly, after Liftoff, I did Gem Pact, which was a small box, Siblings Trouble, small, Heroes and Tricks and Herbaceous, and all those were 20 to 45 minute type experiences. But this is more in that longer play, more strategic. So a lot of interesting things going on. I mean, I think I'm going to still end up doing a bunch of different stuff. Like the next game in the lineup is Sunset Over Water, which is made with the entire Herbaceous team.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that one's back to 20-minute filler.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna Pencil First is gonna be all over the place, frankly.
So is it Beth Sobel doing the design work again, the artwork on that?
Yeah. So for Sunset Over Water, Beth Sobel's doing the art, Steve Finn's doing the main design, Keith Mateka is doing the solo play, Ben's doing the graphic design. Basically, all had a great time on Herbaceous, and we were like, what are we going to do next? So we started another project together, so that's been a lot of fun.
Kind of like getting the gang back together then.
Yeah. And, it's not always the case, but generally on projects that I lead, I try to, it's not, people are all distributed, so it's not like we're all in the same place, but we try to have a good rapport and communication between the team, and we're sort of all working together. I don't really do the sort of designer passes over a prototype and then, you then process it afterwards without the designer. This is all really collaborative product development together, game development.
Have you had to dust off your big box shoes again? After kind of doing the smaller games in the last couple of rounds, have you had to kind of relearn a few things that you maybe had put to one side since liftoff?
Yeah. Well, certainly having to just remember the amount of work in the rule, like dealing with rules for a larger game.
Yeah.
Is like there's just so much of it, and dealing with lots of different components. Legendary Creatures has really cool custom meeples like Liftoff did. They're not painted, but they're still pretty cool.
Yeah.
And just boards and cards and chits and all these little things. I'd also say, I play tons of games, so I don't, I can cycle between filler and longer play games, but I definitely had developed more of a lighter playtest group, and people doing that. So I definitely had to extend beyond people I had been playtesting with for some time to get more, deeper experience.
To jump in. Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, you had to kind of go back to because the guys, it's like saying to people, "Here, do you want to play Heroes and Tricks?" And then say, "Hi, guys, do you want to play Scythe or do you want to play Twilight Imperium and just watch?"
Yeah, well, it's really that kind of thing, and with Herbaceous, because that was actually the last one, that really was a situation where that was very much this sort of super entry-weight, lightweight, play it with anyone, send it to your mom, really super easy to get into, quick play type of experience, and to sort of sit down and be like, no, this is going to take some time. You're going to build a strategy. You're going to have, there's some deck building elements or creature party building elements to Legendary Creatures. And so, but it just expands everything. I think it makes a campaign harder, right? Like, Pencil First Games is really about just making cool, fun projects with people I want to work with more than anything else. And so it's a little hard to carry an audience if you're going to change everything. Like if you're just doing Tiny Epic stuff and you're doing Tiny Epic stuff with the same designer and the same idea for the game, and you can sort of cultivate and build that audience. But when you're like, well, there's the Liftoff folk, and then there's the storytelling Siblings Trouble folk, and then there's the Herbaceous flower folk, like to Legendary Creatures. It's a little, they're not all the same audience. It's sort of a shifting audience, right?
No. And I mean, I can imagine people that would check out, that were really, really into Herbaceous, having a look at Legendary Creatures and going, oh, this looks big. This looks board game with a capital B, and then maybe having a step back.
I worry about that a little bit, and one of the nice things is some people are like, I played Herbaceous, and I looked at this. What's really nice is when they say something in that email, because I reach out to every backer via Kickstarter and say thank you and ask them if they have any questions and stuff. And there's a lot of them that said, I came with Herbaceous, but I watched the video, I saw how to play, I read the rules. Stuff like that makes me feel really good. If it concerns me a little bit and there's a lot of words on the Kickstarter page, so I don't think the Kickstarter page shows anything but the game it is.
Yeah.
But I if you're like, hey, I played Herbaceous in 20 minutes, I'm going to play Legendary Creatures in 20 minutes. It's like, no, you're not. It's not gonna. And so, you just want to, you want everyone to back and to come out of it with a game they love, right? So that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Has it been? I take it as being kind of like a kind of a go back to things, especially since you've got all the components to consider and things like that. Has manufacturing changed quite a little bit since you did Liftoff? Have you noticed kind of changes in how things have done, since there seems to be a lot more bigger box games kind of going out at Kickstarter? Have you noticed things have slightly changed in the manufacturing side of things, or is it still the same?
Maybe a little bit. Like the custom meeples was a pretty non-starter. I mean, not non-starter, no-brainer. Like there really wasn't any kind of, I think when I was doing Liftoff, it was a little bit more weird, but now it's like, well, sure, here's your custom meeples. I think for the most part, it's all about my experience and my relationship with Watts Games. I did Liftoff with Panda, but since then, all 4 of my other games were with Watts. And so I have a really good relationship with those guys now, and we work on a significant amount of projects together. Yeah. And so there's just more comfort, and I can get sent, it's a really nice dynamic with that printer. And so that really helps the process along. I feel good that we're going to come through and make a really high quality product. And that's important to me. And one of the things that I've tried to do with all of the Pencil First Game stuff is make games that people really feel like are as intended, right? Like they're nice components, nice art, fun gameplay, and that all sort of rolls together. And, you might not like all of them. You mentioned Heroes and Tricks. Heroes and Tricks is a game that really splits people. Some people love it. Some people feel like it's way too chaotic. But, the execution of it was really like, this is the game we're making, and hopefully you love it. But, if you don't, it's not because it didn't all fit together, just you don't like the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's horses for courses, isn't it? I mean, when you see, it's just, you can't, again, it's like, well, did you play Gem Pack? Did you play Herbaceous? Well, here's Heroes and Tricks. I mean, they're relatively slightly, I could see somebody picking up Herbaceous and then going to Heroes and Tricks and saying, well, that's a completely different game. And I guess, but what you're doing is a good thing, because it's very, very easy for a game designer, a game publisher to be labeled with producing kind of certain types of games. And if you're already going in and saying, well, we're diversifying and we're doing, here's a big box game, here's our set collection game, here's our trick game, that kind of, I guess, puts you in a good footing for where you go next. Because if you go and do something different, people aren't going to be turning around and going, Pencil First are doing something completely different they've never done before. How are they going to deal with kind of doing all these kind of different things? So it's kind of cool.
I think there's truth to that, and again, we're it's more, I don't have any employees, right? So it's me, but it's really about making the game that I'm excited about, with either I'm designing or with a designer who's super excited about it, and bringing on the right artists. And it's really these projects where we pull everything together and work and make a cool game. Making sure that you can, communicate it in a Kickstarter and do all the things you need to actually make it a reality. You have to be good at, but it's not so much, I'm not a publisher in the sense of, it's a hobby. Pencil First Games is a hobby company. It's a hobby for me. So I think that it's an awesome opportunity to make cool things, connect with people to support them, and bring them to market. And I'm really excited about doing each and every one. And they're just all different. I'm working on a game with Keith Mateka now. Mm-hmm. That's totally different again. So we're doing all sorts of things.
Were you, when we spoke last time, which was almost a year ago, were you surprised by how well Herbaceous did?
Yes. I mean, I wasn't like shocked.
No.
But I certainly, it exceeded my expectations. It's one of those things. In many ways, of everything in all the games I've done, Herbaceous was the most like a product, that in the sense of, it all started with this incredible herb art that Beth did. Yeah. And I was like, I looked at it and I was like, there should be an herb game. Like, why isn't there an herb game? We should make an herb game. And then I was sort of working on it, and I wasn't happy with where the design was. And I was like, I wanted to work with Steve. Hey, Steve, you want to make an herb game with me and Beth? And then, But the whole way through, it was like, this is going to be a game that's lightweight, that you can play with your family, that you can play with your parents. Like, very, very particular to me was like, I want a game you can play with grandparents.
No, yeah. My mum was, when I showed it to my mum, and she says, so this is a card game. But there's not all these... I've seen your card games. They've got like pictures of dragons and heroes and numbers, and there's like text underneath, and I can't make head nor tail of them. And it's like, no, this is a card game. And she's like, this is beautiful. I could write on the back of these and send them to my friends as postcards. And it says, if you write in the back of these cards, yeah, you can be a lot of trouble, Mum.
Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing was, so that it was like the audience and the market from a product perspective was crystal clear.
Yeah. And
so I think it was in the campaign page, we really struck at that hard. I mean, I think I had like a Mother's Day card and like all sorts of things. And it's been wildly successful. Most of the other games that Pencil First Games have done have been sort of like fun, designery, interesting, their own sort of personality games. They weren't like, let's take dragons, card drafting, and legacy and roll it together. Like everything else on Pencil First is all about the game.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those games take, a really long time to make, years to make, and then, they do well, but they don't do well as the Herbaceous, which was relatively quick comparatively to those games and just hit an audience in the right way, and it was at the right weight. So, it's both like exciting at the same time as sort of depressing. It's like, that game we spent 3 years working on, people didn't get it, but this game that we put together that was really limited but really specific to an audience caught on fire. Not on fire, but did really well. So it just speaks to the difference between like making games and making products. And so it's been interesting. It's been something that I think about. Take Legendary Creatures, for example. Legendary Creatures is interesting because it is heavier, it's a little longer than the artwork suggests. It's bright and colorful and feels like it's sort of a quicker game, and it's not. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's a little bit of a mismatch. And when you have a little bit of a mismatch, it gets a little harder to describe the game, and people hesitate a little because they're like, oh, well, I like the looks, but it seems a little long, or I don't mind the game time. The game seems great, but it sort of seems a little cartoony. And you sort of sit in between audiences sometimes, and that can make it tough.
I like that, though. I like the artwork. To be perfectly honest, that's one of the things that... Because I'm a bit of an art snobby type guy, if something's got good art. But what I like about... when I saw Legendary Creatures, one of the things I thought about is I thought it wouldn't be, you could potentially see it on the same shelf as you would see, like, say, Catacombs 3rd edition or something like that. It was it had that kind of cartoony, pleasant, this would be a game I would show people just because of the artwork kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean...
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, I love... So, and part of it is my taste, too. I love color, and I love pretty, and I love fun, and I can have a heavyweight game that doesn't have to be like, gritty and dark and red and black. And so, like...
We've got enough of that. We don't need any more of that,
I think that way, but at the same time, it's still, audiences are audiences, and when you don't do something they expect, it's confusing sometimes. So, again, it's just, it's all part of the learning process, and I've been just trying to, do more and more of these games, learn more, build up, relationship with the backers, try to deliver and do things the right way, and, I'm having fun, so that gets me most of the way.
So let's talk, let's do some quick prices on it, because you can get the base set for is it $39? Yeah, it's $39.
Yeah, it's $39, and probably if you're in the UK, I want to say it's $49. I could be mistaken. I think I gave that. I think UK was $10 shipping.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it's an extra £10 for shipping to the UK. So
well, $10. I don't know.
$10, yeah, $10. So that's about £8. So it's not really. It's very cheap because every time you try to ship something from the US, normally it usually costs about $150 to ship over.
Well, that's really for what it's worth. This is the first time on a campaign I've given the UK specifically what I've essentially given is Canada pricing because I usually on past campaigns I bundled all of EU together.
Yeah.
But in reality, since I ship from Game Quest, which is based in the UK, I was looking at the numbers on the last campaign, and actually, because it's not the lightest game. I mean, it's a heavy game. There's a lot in there. Mm-hmm. We were looking at the numbers. I was like, oh yeah, I can give them a better deal for UK. So there you have it.
You're so nice. No, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there is nothing worse than, and it seems to be the trend nowadays is that you'll have like. It's $50 or it's $75 for the game, and then there'll be shipping will be charged after the event. And you get all the way through the pledge manager, and you discover that shipping's going to be like 50% of the actual cost. And I think people are getting educated that actually it does cost money to ship something. Amazon's done everybody a disservice by thinking free shipping means that it costs nothing to ship everything everywhere, but it kind of costs a lot of money. But no, that's a really good rate. But you're also doing what you did. You can get Herbaceous as well. So you've got your Herbaceous bundle, so you can get legendary creatures, and you can also get Herbaceous included. And then you've got the Adventure bundle, which is $79, which includes the Siblings Trouble and Heroes and Tricks as well. So it's a nice little combination. It's kind of like welcome to the kind of the pencil first kind of family. Here's the other games that we do. I don't see other companies kind of doing that, which is an interesting tactic.
Not as much. Dr. Steve Finn does it with his games, but sometimes people do it. There's a lot of people that are sort of against it. I think if you're small, I get asked about all that stuff all the time. The interesting thing is, Liftoff is sold out. Gem Pact is sold out. And actually, once these Siblings Trouble and Heroes and Tricks ship, both of those games will also be sold out or near sold out. So, it's interesting for me because right now, I have to sort of figure out how to do reprints on certain games, or it's not as obvious as people think.
No.
If you have a game that's not a massive hit, it's not that easy. Herbaceous is the only game to date that has been both successful enough and, generally speaking, cheap enough of a game that I've been able to say, you know what, I'm going to take 70% or 50% of like the bank account for the company and put it towards this reprint without trying to do another Kickstarter reprint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Isaac Childress, he says hello because the only reason the second edition of Gloomhaven kind of exists is because he had to go to Kickstarter. He couldn't just go out and say, right, this is really successful, boys. I'm just going to reprint it with all this money I appear not to kind of have.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's crazy. I mean, you talk about shipping. Back when I did Liftoff, I totally bought shipping. The game weighed more than I thought it was going to weigh. And it ended up, I lost a lot of money on that game. And so the reality was, I mean, getting shipping wrong is really tough, and having a bunch of extra money is really tough. So like with Liftoff, I was in a situation where it sold out. I could have reprinted, but I would have had to spend like $15,000 at the time. I didn't have it, so let's say I had it, $15,000 to do this reprint. And if every copy of the reprint sold, I might make $20,000, right, or 21 or something. And so suddenly, maybe a little bit more, but it would have been over like 2 years. So suddenly it's like, well, I can take all this capital and invest it with a risk that the game's not going to sell, because if I printed and it didn't sell, I'd be sitting on a bunch of heavy games, right?
Yeah.
And so, no, it's really tough. I've been trying to get Liftoff going again. I actually put together a full expansion. But Liftoff was a little bit underwater, which is upside down, because the component quality was so high that it should have been a $60 price point, but I was making it $50, which is fine. But the market and family weight nature of it should have been $40. So I had a game that was selling for $50. It should have been selling for $40, but the components were $60. So it was really hard to justify it. So I've been looking at perhaps moving to a new printer, or trying to do different things, maybe reducing some pieces or getting rid of an extra, because Liftoff does a lot of things like I would never do again as a game maker. Well, just like it's got a full fold-out board that you put another board on top of.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
And the board underneath it, all that does, other than be pretty, is show you where the moons go, right? And like, I could have made the shards just a little bigger so that you could put the moon on them as it went around, and I wouldn't have an entire extra. And it wasn't even it's like a super nice board. Like Liftoff is awesome quality game, right? Like
Liftoff is really amazing. Yeah.
No,
I mean, there's no too short. I mean, you kind of set a bar, kind of that thing. Because if I get, you're right. Okay, you ruined Kickstarters for me for about forever, really, because any other Kickstarter I got through, even the card stock was a decent thing. The meeples had they had little pictures on them, but it wasn't stickers. You'd actually somebody taken the time to paint the colours on there. The cardboard was a good size. It was just everything was like really, really nice. So you kind of ruined anything else.
Yeah, and I get a lot of Kickstarters, and there's a big range in component and game quality, and there are people who care about that more than others.
Yeah.
But anyway, all of that together put the game in a bad place.
Yeah.
And I probably get requests for Liftoff all the time, and if you've made something people want, you want to be able to do it. But so anyway, right now I've been going through quote and option, and what I think I'm going to do next year perhaps is sort of a reprint deluxe new version that maybe has an expansion in it, like it's sort of like jumbo edition, not jumbo in size, but deluxe edition.
Yeah.
And then I'm also trying to figure out a way to do like an upgrade kit for people who had the original, but that's hard too. So I'm trying to figure it out, man. It's tricky. There's only so many things you can do, and when again, it's both part time, but also there's only so much extra money at any given time in the account, so you got to pick your plays. Right now, that expansion is really focused on expanding liftoff points and pipes and some other fun stuff, and adding more interesting centerpiece, and just really playing with the components. Had another sort of sequel design, which was going to be more along the lines of you've lifted off from the planet with your aliens, and then you start sort of trying to sort of not conquer, but like land and repopulate on a new planet.
All right, okay.
So with whatever, but it never, I sort of looked around and I was like, if I do anything, I'm just going to do that mini expansion first. But right now, number of things in development. It should be, have a lot of cool projects moving. I try not to set dates when they're not ready. So, they're just a bunch of balls in the air, and as they feel really good, I sort of queue them up for Kickstarter.
So, I mean, is it a whole range of other games that you've got then? I mean, is it kind of like going to be like a party bag kind of mix of sweets? You could put your hand in there, you could get a lolly out, you could get a chew out, you could get a taffy, you could get a chocolate bar. It just depends.
There's Sunset Over Water, which is pretty straightforward in that it's sort of at the weight of Herbaceous. It's really Project 2 is sort of in your Herbaceous zone in the super lightweight filler. Working on a 2-player asynchronous game with Keith Mateka for next year, which should be fun. Working on got a nice, came up to a nice sort of understanding with Atlas Games on how we could do Unkindness of Ravens, which would sort of expand on Murder of Crows. So that's something that we're working on. But we had to figure that out with them. What else? We are loosely starting to talk about Herbaceous Dice as another project for that team to work on next year. So, yeah.
That'd be big chunky, colorful dice then.
Yeah. And Steve does good dice games. Mm-hmm. And so, again, they all sort of roll along, and then you sort of figure it out, and you bring them in. Another project I'm working on is called Heroes Welcome. It's not a Pencil First Games game, but I've been essentially doing the product side of it.
Yeah.
And so Monkey Jump Games, I think, is what Mark's calling it. That'll probably happen as well. So, lots of stuff. It's, I'm still trying to figure out the balance between, I don't like to have a bunch of open Kickstarters, right? So,
no.
It worked out pretty well with Heroes and Tricks and Herbaceous. And so I felt like that was a good thing. So I feel, there's Legendary Creatures coming to a close. We'll do the Sunset Over Water.
Yeah.
Then I'm basically going to fulfill them both and make sure they all get the backers, and then probably then do the next one. So I think probably the most is 3 a year if I really pushed, I think.
And
perhaps.
are you any closer to the minis game? Because I think I asked you last time, you went, no.
Oh, me actually doing a mini game with minis?
Yeah.
It's funny. The game we probably would have done it with perhaps was this one I'm working on with Keith, because you have these huge sort of Guardian, Colossal, sort of Shadow of the Colossus type characters.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I don't know. I really like meeples. So they're just really awesome. They're just awesome giant meeples.
Yeah.
And I haven't. There's a game that's further out in the distance, Vineyard, that is framed around, in a sense, the sort of play of Takenoko, which is just this idea that you have a bunch of characters in the space and you're moving them around in this vineyard.
Yeah.
I would do those. I think I would. I'm going to look at doing those as little plastic painted ones.
Yeah.
But they're not. I don't see it as miniatures in terms of army and expecting everyone to hand paint on their own, and I don't see it as that kind of thing. I see it more as I could imagine paying a little extra to have that thing. I don't know. We'll see. Legendary Creatures had a ton of art, right? It's Legendary Creatures is my biggest budget pre-Kickstarter game. And, I think I need to have a balance of these expensive ones and not so expensive ones. And, I'm learning one of the reasons I do all those League videos is because I'm learning every time and with every project and trying new things and just trying to share that.
Because you're not just, we touched on this in the kind of the green room, as you would call it before. This is us kind of saying, right, okay, let's phone each other back and try and get this going, because that kind of thing. But you're doing a lot of content now. You were doing content before. There was you were doing reviews, walkthroughs for a while. How do you find the time?
Yeah, the time piece is all about being organized.
Yeah.
But I think it's been interesting because I was doing, after Liftoff, I sort of made that decision. I was like, games take a year, and I want to do something and add to the community and participate. And so that's when I started doing game reviews. And those are, I was sort of like, hey, these are going to be short. I'm not going to do a ton of B-roll.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do it and do it in a take or two, and then a couple edits. So it's not, they still take forever to do, but it's not like somebody who's, filming every component and splicing it all together. But so I was doing that, and I'd always film my how to play, or any of the videos I did for my games, for Pencil First Games. I started, and actually it was Liftoff. If in the final campaign I had committed to saving the aliens, and I did this road trip video experience which was like the first giant video movie modern day that I've ever made, and it's expansive. It was over 3 episodes, and it was over like 5 states, and even had some special effects. And so after that, I was doing these videos, and then the start of this year, so whatever it is, like 7 months ago, has it only been that much? I guess so. The League of Game Makers said, "Hey, do you want to do articles for the League of Game Makers? You've written a couple, and we want some more. We're looking to grow the group a little bit."
Yeah.
And they were like, "But we'd want like an article a month." And I was like, "There's no way I'm doing an article a month, guys." But I was like, I could do a video a month. I could even do 2 videos a month.
Oh,
because I had been thinking about how I could do different things than just reviews anyway.
Yeah.
And so I started in with them, and I ended up, it's been this cool content outlet, and I've expanded. I started with the, sort of design and Kickstarter basics, and then Kickstarter Advanced, and then I've started doing these Q&As and sort of pseudo interviews. I've done the 10 designer map sort of thing, and so I also, even recently in the last 2 months, I started doing this another perspective. I don't know if it's like a series or like format, and like it's like a type of content where I look at something that's happened in the industry and I give some perspective on it, and those have been reasonably well received. So, it's strange. I never really thought of myself as a content creator, but like you sort of look back at it in a moment, you're like, oh, I've made 325 game reviews, and I have 50 League videos, and suddenly you're like, oh, I've sort of made 100 hours of content or 1,000 hours of content. Like, I guess I make content.
I know, but it's getting that balance though. I mean, that's what I thought, because I was sitting there the other day and I was like going, this is going to be episode 83, and I don't remember. I get to the point now I go back and I think, I don't think I've made that. I must have made a mistake somewhere in my counting, and then you check and you go, nope. Podbean definitely says there's 82. There's 82 other kind of podcasts out there with you talking on them. I was like, oh my goodness, how does that happen? But do you, are you kind of like spitballing at the moment? Are you just kind of seeing what's kind of out there and working? Have you got a definite plan? Are you doing it just because, do you know what? I enjoy getting in front of the camera, or I enjoy having a chat about stuff I care about.
I think it's interesting. It's been a great opportunity to sort of meet more people in the industry, engage. It's one thing when you're like a Kickstarter creator, but when you're doing reviews, just you can have different conversations. Mm-hmm. I don't have a long-term plan. I will say recently I've started to sort of with the Q&A, like you start saying, how can I do, it becomes, you start having fun with it. I guess what you could say is you start having fun with it, in the sense of the reviews are pretty standard format, and then you sort of say, well, what else can I do? And is this interesting? And you try something and you see if people are interested in it, and you try something else. I don't mind talking and being on camera, certainly. But for me, it's really, the thing is the most rewarding is people who, if it's a review, they get perspective on a game, or the Kickstarter stuff, I'm helping other creators. When I came into it, there was, whether it was Jamie Stegmaier or a number of other people who were sort of leading the way on supporting new creators, I felt like everyone was amazingly nice and all in on everyone being successful. Like, everyone wants your Kickstarter to succeed. Like, they're like, if you're there and you're asking, they want to help. And so I felt like I wanted to pay that forward, and I wanted to sort of continue that. So, it's been interesting, and it's led to different things. The reviews, I've been able to have some shout out to designers and have like a back and forth with a designer I really like in games. Yeah. And, I had an interesting experience where I did another perspective on something that Dice Tower did. And, I hadn't really ever had much of a conversation with Tom Vassell other than maybe a hello or, a pass by when I was, at a convention doing a little talk on one of our games with some other host. But, we were at Origins and we chatted, I don't know, for 20 or 30 minutes about design and designers and reviewers, and, it was cool.
It's kind of, I'm continually kind of struck by how open and friendly the entire community is, and how it kind of doesn't seem to have the same kind of, there's a little bit of a toxic community about the video game industry, which I hope doesn't end up landing in the board game industry, because the board game industry still seems to be, it just generally people are kind of helping each other. And not for a one-upmanship either, not to go about and say, look, I'm helping this guy, but generally because it's like, well, if you do well, then you might be the person that's going to design the next game that I'm going to end up spending 10 hours of my life wanting to play and having a lot of fun, kind of thing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I never found a good spot in indie video games, which I did for a while, and there's nothing wrong with it. I feel like since it's a bigger industry, there's more people, everyone's sort of doing their own thing. I think in the board game space, and sort of intrinsic to playing board games with other people, there's just more of a community fabric, and I've just found it more enjoyable. Like I found much more of because my career is video games. I spent 15 to 20 years doing video games, and I never really felt like I was part of a community, in the sense that with board games I have. Now, I will say one of the things that's a challenge is the board game online community can both be very positive, like you're saying, but it does still see its share of sort of trolling and hate that, isn't unique to board games, is, unique to social media and being online.
Yeah.
And, it just sucks. I recently... there's been a big conversation around reviews and paid content and content marketing and all this stuff. And I was asking some questions to board game reviewers and to Kickstarter creators, and there's still a lot of vitriol in places. And I ended up doing I think we were talking about this. This might land soon, but on Friday of this week. I have a video on my channel about talking through, reviews and paid content and stuff like that. And a big part of it's just like, hey, we're all in here to help each other, right? We all want to win. it's all symbiotic, and we should be able to figure out a way to think through this and make the right decisions. There's been, even the last couple of days, and man, I don't want to talk about it because I don't have any information, but I know, there's just been lots of drama on the board game group Facebook page and everyone other Facebook page and a lot of angry people. And it seems to bubble up at different times. And, I just hope we can continue to grow as a community, because I think we have a long way to go. But, I think there's places where it gets nasty still.
Yeah, I know. But then there's things like that where I can, email the likes of yourself and say, do you fancy coming on and having a chat? And you'll be like, yeah, it's cool. Or, it's like like Jamie, where we've both now spoken to Jamie and, Jamie Stegmeyer, and he's just genuinely really nice. And it's like, when do you ever get grumpy, Jamie? Ever?
Yeah.
Do you ever get grumpy, Jamie? Maybe at the bottom of Charterstone, you lift up the final bit, and there's just a big picture of angry Jamie at the bottom going, "Roar!" like that. I'm burning your village to the ground, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I mean, I still, me and Colin always talk about how kind of friendly the community is. You're going to be doing all this content. You're going to got lots of kind of games going out. Are you, the most important question of the day is the hair, Ed. Are you continuing to let this bad boy just grow?
Yeah. I can't afford to get haircuts, man. You might not know this. You probably wouldn't know this, but basically I'll just, when I get a haircut, when I do actually get a haircut, I will basically shave my head, like not with like a bic, but like to like a 2 or something.
Really?
Yeah, and then it'll just grow from there until I cut it again, on my own with a electric, buds clippers.
Yeah.
So I don't. There is a chance. I haven't seen my parents in a long time, probably almost a year, and they're going to be in town, and I might for my mom trim the bottom so that right now it's it just grows from the bottom of my neck grows it's a mess at the bottom. It's not like a nice haircut at the bottom. So I might trim it there. Just
Are you considering beard? I mean, is there going to beard Wardo as well?
If you watch through the videos, you see it in places. It's not. My wife is not a huge fan. I can usually get away with it for some time. Yeah. I'll do a goatee sometimes. Yeah. But not. I don't think you're going to see Undead Viking big, burly. But I'll that'll come again. Or
it's not going to be like the. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video. Hero Quest is the best game ever made.
Oh, that guy's awesome, man.
That's a beard you could lose a gargoyle in that beard. It's fantastic. And
yeah, I have a super itchy phase I have to get through. It's from 3 weeks to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Where I just want to pull out all my face hair, but after that, then you can comb it and it's all cool. But no. If Emily didn't constantly start making fun of me about being a mountain man and just constantly, I'd probably do that. And also at my full-time job, being somewhat well kept is important. So that's another reason I shave more.
Kind of expected. Otherwise you'll end up looking like Forrest Gump doing the running thing.
Yeah. But no, I've enjoyed it. This is the longest I've had it since high school, probably.
Really?
So it's been going well.
See, I'm at that lovely age where my hair grows out of everywhere except the top of my head. So, if you want ear hair, nose hair, just anything like that, I'm your man. For it to actually persuade it to grow out the top of my head is something completely different. No, we look forward to see what your hair game is going to be like in the future, because I think it's almost as important as keeping a track on what's happening with the content as what is happening with your hair. I reckon.
Well, the crazy thing is, I have this sort of digital. Now that I've been doing content creation for almost 3 years now, video stuff, right? So you can just sort of look through, and if I'm not mistaken, I've not gotten a haircut once since I've been doing the YouTube videos. So if you just go to my first game review, if you just go to the playlist for my game reviews and go to the first one, you can just go every 20 reviews and just see the hair getting longer and longer and longer.
Somebody needs to take still images and turn that into a video of your hair just growing.
Every once in a while it breaks down a little bit because I'll film a review and then somebody will delay their Kickstarter for 2 months or it bounces around a couple times, but just generally you can see me going from short hair to long hair in those videos.
Have you been tempted to plait it or put it in a bun or anything like that? Or are you just straight up?
Let me say something about the man bun and this kind of thing.
Here we go.
I think the complaints about a man bun are bullshit, and I think that what I don't understand is why women if you have long hair, the easiest way to get the long hair off the back of your neck is you just put it into a ponytail and don't pull it all the way through so that it's not on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it's being somebody who now has long hair, it's blatantly obvious that that's just a comfortable way to do it. So I don't understand the complaint. I think perhaps it's maybe with women, you when you put your hair up in that manner, you do it more, carefully, with care, in a nicer sort of thing. But if you just want to quickly get your hair up off your neck and your back, the quickest way to do it is you just put it into a ponytail and then wrap it into the thing. And so to me, it's I don't understand the problem. It's just this convenient, quick thing. I guess there's I'm not the sort of proto-male. I don't know if they're called hipsters anymore. Like, I don't know what the...
You don't know, yeah. I know, because obviously...
They're like... The people who are like young, gorgeous men with hair buns, right? Like, or whatever that is. But just generally, it's just like... when people are like, oh, you're putting your hair in a hair bun, it's like, man, I'm just getting off the back of my neck.
I know.
If you have a better solution, give me some chopsticks. I don't care.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway.
So that was hair care, 10 minutes, and we're not wizards. Join us next week.
Well, that's the crazy thing is I've been, now I have to like ask women, like, whoa, what do you do with frizzy hair? I don't know what to do with this.
Is that what happens in the humidity? Because you're in California, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I just don't. I think at some point when you've been living with long hair your entire life, you don't have to be a woman to do that, right? No. You could just be a guy who's had long hair for a long time.
Yeah.
But being somebody who, this is the first time I've had this long hair for this extended of a period in 20 years. Like, I don't know how to do all this stuff. Like the other, I think Emily, my wife, was saying you shouldn't, if you take showers with colder water, your hair won't frizz up as much. Like, I don't know any of this. Like, my relationship with my hair is not something that like I have perspective on, but I'm starting to learn. Anyway,
you need to do a Kickstarter and it needs to be called Strong Hair Game.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do. It needs to be hair care and everything like that. That's how you need to do this.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
This is going to be interesting. Oh, what did you do? I spoke to Ed Baraf last night. What did you do? Well, we spoke about his Kickstarter campaign, what he was doing on social media, and then we spent a little bit of time talking about hair care. Do you use both? I mean, this is the thing. Men and women shampoo, is there a difference? I mean, do you just use anything at all?
I use anything at all, man.
Yeah.
I have moved to not using an all-in-one for my hair, like having a shampoo and a conditioner. It's nice, but I just want to be clear. We were talking about games, and you brought this up.
Yeah, I didn't bring
this
fine.
up.
That's fine.
It's on the record. You brought it up.
We just let the conversation go as it goes. You know what I mean? And if there's somebody listening and saying, well, board games isn't about washing hair, and it's like, well, maybe it is. Maybe you should wash your hair. Because then you might be able to play more board games. I'm just that I don't know, there's some kind of ridiculous kind of tie-in kind of going on, but you seem to have a lot going on, which is all kind of super exciting. But, and we will make sure that, we'll put links to all of your stuff, in the show notes. But for people listening just now, where's the best place that you can find you?
Well, if you're listening right now, what I'd appreciate most would just be to go to Kickstarter, look up Legendary Creatures, and check it out. But that aside, you can go to baraf.com, www.baraf.com, B-A-R-A-F. And on YouTube, I just renamed my channel. It used to be Edo Barafu, but now it's Gaming with Edo. So it should be pretty easy to find. And, check it out.
Cool. And you're on the normal Twitters and Facebook groups and places like that of this world. I'll get the links off you and I'll make sure that they appear in the show notes. So check out Legendary Creatures. Come back next week where we'll be discussing the do's and don'ts of making a beef stew. And Ed will be bringing along his top tips on why you should be cutting carrots horizontally instead of vertically. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and I've no idea why people continue to do this, but good, God bless you if you do. You can find us by going onto Google and searching for We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. We're on YouTube because the wonderful people at Podbean automatically put all of our podcasts onto YouTube. We don't have one of the custom URLs because we don't have enough people subscribing yet. But we are trying to make that happen. If you want to help the show, you can do a couple of things. Jump onto iTunes and drop us a review. Drop us a subscription. If you are going to drop us a review, then make sure you don't give us 10 stars because that gives us a huge big head. And we become quite arrogant. But don't give us a 1 because that will make us upset and make us cry. Give us a 5. Give us something in the middle. Something quite average. Because we are decidedly
You're really
average.
selling it there.
Well, There's only 5 stars on the iTunes review.
Ah, I get it.
See?
I get it. Now I understand.
Every week it gets ruined. Every single week. But the person that's not been average at all is the wonderful Ed Baraf from Pencil First Games. This has been a pleasure. We should do this again an awful lot sooner than leaving it a year, because it's been an awful lot of fun to have you on. As I say, we'll put some links in the show notes so we have notes to show. But until the next time, there's only a couple of things left to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Ed?
We're not wizards.
Definitely not. And the second thing to do is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the wonderful, the fantastic, the long-haired wonder that is Ed, Ed Baraf. Say goodbye, Ed.
Bye, have a good one.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, get yourself on Legendary Creatures and check it out. Because it's, Kickstarter is a wonderful thing, and it allows people like Ed to put things like Legendary Creatures in front of you. Check out his YouTube stuff, because it's good fun and very interesting, and he is also definitely a pro subscription, so drop him something there. But until the next time, it's a goodbye.
Bye.